Welcome back to the program on this very historic day, the Saba Saba day, in which Kenyans, of course, are remembering the multi-party struggle. Of course, it is also a very important day as far as ruling from the court is concerned, and that is all about the ballot paper case and what it means for the country, even as we gear up for the August 8th general election. And in studio with me is once again Eddy Orinda, who is a lawyer, and we had a discussion earlier on, Eddy. So let's continue from where you left. If the petition by NASA sells through, hypothetically speaking, what will this mean for the country?
Thank you, Yusuf. I think the merits of the case have been very elaborately discussed in all the manner of the media, including social media and national newspapers. So I do not want to concentrate on the merits. I think I will concentrate on the technical aspects of the decision that is likely to be made today. And I'd like to go back to the first question you asked just before we took the break, whether or not it would be possible under the circumstances to change the date of the election.
Yes.
And I must state very clearly, in no uncertain terms, that it is cast on stone. It is not possible to change the election date. Chapter 8 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 provides for the election to happen every second Tuesday of August in the 5th year, which basically means, if you go by calculations in your calendar, that is essentially the 8th of August. So that cannot be changed. The only exception would be circumstances described by the Constitution, which would amount to a war, in which case a parliament can extend its life by 6 months, a maximum of 12 months. So the question of changing the date of the election
is not applicable here.
Does not arise and is not applicable.
Will this leave the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission some sort of a tricky scenario, because they have just about 32 days to the general election? Well,
if you are keen on arguments that have been raised on both sides, especially when both parties appeared before the court, the petitioner has in fact indicated that that argument should not be invoked, considering that direct procurement is provided for under the law, and it's possible on short notice to then immediately engage in the same exercise and get a completely independent person to facilitate the printing of the ballot papers, so that in their view, no crisis would be necessitated by the amount of time that we have before the election. But of course, IBC has also argued that considering the technical aspects of the exercise and the integrity that it comes with, that it would lead into a crisis if we attempted to redo the exercise all over again, whether through direct procurement or through competitive tendering.
I think the main question here is whether we should have, the election on the exact day, that is the August 8th. Of course, you've said that is enshrined in the law, or whether we are going to have, free and fair elections. Of course, we're going to look at which one will supersede the other. But for now, if you're just joining us, those are live pictures coming our way from Uhuru Park, where President Uhuru Kenyatta is Deputy William Ruto. I can see Nairobi Governor Ivan Skidero, as well as Interior Cabinet Secretary there, Joseph Kaiseri. They've all arrived at the venue there at Uhuru Park Stadium, Uhuru Park rather, where they're going to mark the prayers for the nation on this very important day, as I've already told you. Let's now listen in to what they have to say there.
La PEFA ili aombee IEBC, polisi wetu, sisi, vikundi vyote ambavyo saidia ili tuwe na uchaguzi na amani wakati huu wa uchaguzi. Tumkaribishe ndugu yetu Bishop Cleopa.
Amen.
Your Excellency, with all dignitaries who are here this afternoon, all protocol observed, the Bible tells us that righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to all people. Our desire for our nation, Kenya, is we want to see God arising and causing all his enemies to scatter. We want righteousness. We want integrity. We want peace. We want to see justice done in this land. And because God is a God of justice, is a God of integrity, and is a God who upholds righteousness, we have a wonderful country called Kenya. And he said, call unto me and I will answer. We are calling unto God today. In faith, God will answer. And all God's enemies will be scattered. Come August 8th, we will have a country to continue.
Well, there you go. Those are live pictures from Uhuru Park, where a prayer meeting is underway. Of course, it is a prayer that is meant to mark this very important day in Kenya's calendar. That is the Saba Saba Day, where Kenyans come together to remember the multi-party struggle. We'll continue covering for you that as well. Our reporter Murimi Mwangi is there, so be sure that you won't miss anything as far as that prayer meeting is concerned. We do expect NASA leader Raila Odinga to also attend that meeting, and thereafter go straight to Kamkunji grounds, where he's going to address his supporters. Let's resume with our discussions here in studio. It's all about the ballot paper case, and together with Eddy Orinda, who is a lawyer. Now, Eddy, we've left somewhere, you know, where we're talking about the election debt, which is well cemented, let's say, or enshrined in the Constitution.
That's correct.
And whether which one supersedes? Are we supposed to have a free and fair elections, or are we just supposed to say that, you know, in the Constitution it's very clear that, you know, the election date is on 8th August. So which one supersedes the other?
I think elections are a very important cornerstone of any democracy. And in fact, is the only credible way through which citizens have an opportunity every time elections come to elect leaders of their choice. So elections are first a constitutional matter because it's provided for in the Constitution. Yes. But elections are also a matter of politics. And when you talk about politics and elections, it's difficult to separate
the two.
Perception from elections. So that the main issue in this case would be, first and foremost, whether the party is acting in good faith. And secondly, whether it would be wise to continue under circumstances that would lead people to, for instance, imagine that it wasn't free and fair in the first place. And that is why this case is very important, because one of the things that we have to deal with is the fact that all the players in an election have to be satisfied that it's going to be free, fair, and credible. Yeah.
And in this case, of course, NASA are not satisfied. They're saying that, you know, the company that has been awarded the tender have been compromised. So do you think it's important to, of course, listen to NASA as well in this case?
I think NASA have a case. It may not be considered to be of a legal nature from the point of view of the courts, depending on what the decision is going to be this afternoon. But I think considering the importance of election and the fact that it's a public interest issue, the person in charge of conducting those elections, in this case the IEBC, has to demonstrate as much as possible that the process is transparent and fair. And that means that issues that come up have to be responded to by the IBC. Any fears that the players have to be addressed. Any concerns that the players may raise have to be addressed. But of course, those have to be done within the confines of the law. Yes. So I think the most important thing to note here is that it's important for every player to be satisfied that the process is going to be free and fair, even in the event that you lose or win, that you're satisfied it was fair. But that at the same time, an independent body like IEBC is allowed to do its job, because if we opened it up to a lot of discussion in terms of what direction it needs to take in making political considerations, then again we would end up with a constitutional crisis.
Wakile, let's be realistic here. We're only 32 days away from the general election. The court, of course, has that case in place. And then, we know the process of tendering, we know it takes a very long process. And IBC have been very categorical, saying that, you know, if the court doesn't favor them, then this will bring about some sort of crisis to the electoral body. Of course, they expect some of the ballot papers to come this month to Kenya. So where will this leave the country? Once again.
I think there are two sides to the argument that you have raised. On the one hand, IEBC has elaborately indicated their difficulties in making any changes at this point, considering the amount of time left. But at the same time, the law provides for direct procurement, which is the avenue the IEBC invoked in the first place. The petitioners have argued that, in fact, for purposes of fairness and granting credibility that the election deserves, that it's possible to dispense.
So you're saying, sorry to cut you, you're saying that if the ruling does not favor IBC, then they have to resort to direct procurement?
That is provided for, because the other party
With the timelines that we have.
The other party have argued that, in fact, in the past, ballot papers were procured in a matter of days. And we have 31 days. Yeah, but of course, those are cases that have been advanced by both sides. It's up to the courts to decide whether or not that is going to be realistic.
Of course, in that case, we do hope Jubilee also don't raise their dissatisfaction with the company that is going to be awarded.
Well, they may, but that brings me back to the point I was raising, that we should not open up an independent and important body like the IBC to political considerations. However, transparency in the entire process is very important in building the confidence of all the parties that the right thing is being done and that the election is going to be free and fair, so that it's irrelevant who prints the ballot papers. But in this case, you note that a very important allegation has been made that there could be a possible connection between the company that's going to conduct this exercise and very senior officials in State House. That is something you cannot ignore.
Exactly. That is something most people will not ignore, of course. Many thanks, Eddy Orinda, for your input. Of course, we're talking about the ballot paper case. We do expect a ruling today to be made, and it's being checked on by a 3-judge bench. Will the ruling favor the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, or will it favor the NASA outfit? And what are some of the ramifications? Of course, it's a story that we're keeping a keen eye for you, and that brings us to the end of our bulletin this afternoon. My name is Yusuf Ibrahim. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Bye-bye for now.